Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being here. To start out this morning's or this afternoon's press briefing, I want to point out that as of this moment, we still have zero confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Victoria County. We know that when and if we do get a case of COVID-19, it may not be the first or only case, but that is a metric and a barometer we have at this point to gauge, and we'll be reporting that on a daily basis. Locally, we're collecting samples and sending off to labs for testing. Any presumptive positive case that we receive, we will immediately relay that to the public. Throughout this whole process, accurate information continues to be one of the most critical resources. The hotline we've established continues to be utilized by the public. That hotline, 580-5796, is ready to answer your questions. We've received over 100 phone calls from the public since that's been up and running yesterday morning. VictoriaTXOEM.org continues to be the source for local and current accurate information related to COVID-19, as well as the Facebook page for the Victoria County Public Health Department. At this time, we're recommending that everybody in Victoria County follow the new guidance from the CDC related to crowds of larger than 10 people over the next 15 days to help slow the spread of COVID-19. The mayor and I are still in agreement at this point to not implement any curfews or make any of these suggestions mandatory or to implement mandatory closures. The mayor and I trust the residents of our community to follow the guidelines being put forth as we work as a community to slow this virus. Dr. McNeil will be speaking more about that momentarily. I also want to update you on the current measures we're taking here in the EOC to protect the personnel here. Everybody that comes into this facility is being temperature checked. Anybody with a fever will not be allowed in. Based on the recommended changes from the CDC related to crowd size, we're going to be increasingly trying to space out chairs, space out folks as much as we can. And of course, we're all doing the frequent hand washing, hand sanitizer routine we've all been hearing about. We continue as a group to proactively seek out the questions that the public has related to this. And we're working long and hard every day to provide answers to those questions. As I mentioned, the hotline we've gotten has received over 100 calls already. Our community's concerns are our concerns. I know you guys are all concerned with the life disruptions and the impact that the coming weeks and months will likely have. And I can tell you that we're all in this together. Earlier today, Mayor McCoy and I had a heartfelt conversation about the impact of all this on our community. We talked about the impact on our families, on the local businesses here, and when normal might return. And there's a lot of unknowns there, and the mayor and I share the concerns and in many ways the anxiety of the community, but I know that together we can get through this. The concerns aren't just economic either. Many of the most vulnerable populations are hit the hardest by the efforts we're putting in place. People who have a tendency to feel lonely or isolated will have a more difficult time, and we need to be there for those people. I believe that our efforts to slow the spread of COVID-19 will be very successful but social distancing does come with a price that we all pay to some extent. My wife and I have 3 kids, 3, 5, and 7 years old, and I know that my middle one, especially our 5-year-old, absolutely loves school. Over the Christmas break, she actually cried that she had to take a week or so off from school. So I know that changes going forward, changes to her routine, she'll have a difficult time with that, but that's something as a parent that we'll get through, and we'll all face this in different ways, but we'll face it together. As difficult as many of these things are, the coming weeks will give us the opportunity to set the tone as a community to how we're going to react to times of trouble, to times of difficulty. Our following the guidance put forth from your local officials, from the CDC, and our efforts to protect vulnerable populations will be a big measure of our success when this is all said and done. And I know that as a community, we'll emerge from this with a track record I think that we can be proud of. Speaking of the vulnerable populations, they say that those in my age group are less susceptible to this virus, but the fact remains, speaking to the younger folks out in the community, that how we heed the direction given to us directly impacts how affected those vulnerable populations are. So I continue to encourage and implore everybody out there to follow the suggestions, the recommendations that we're giving, and to continue to listen to the information we provide. I'm going to give the mayor a minute to share some remarks with us, and then we'll hear from some of the experts in our community and some of the folks who have information we've all needed. So, Mayor, you can come on up.
Thank you, Judge. I wholeheartedly concur with what the judge has relayed. These are tough times. These are times that we're all living through together. That we all need to continue to help one another. It is our greatest hope that people would adhere to the voluntary actions that we're asking you to take in this time. Because as I said yesterday, when it's voluntary, all of our resources can be used for assistance to people and not used if it becomes mandatory in enforcement. Then I think those resources become wasted. And I think the way that we come through this as a community is going to define what kind of community we are and what we're going to emerge as. If we can work together in union and in true community spirit, helping one another and stuff, we will come out of this at the end as a stronger, more unified community. And we're almost forced into a situation where we have to cooperate with one another. We have to talk to one another. We have to listen to one another. We need to be concerned about one another. And so if there is a bright side to this situation, that is what it's going to be. Because I'm fully convinced that if we do this and work together as a community, we're going to come out of this stronger and better. And Victoria has a history of that sort of thing, and we want to make sure that we adhere to that history, the history of this great community. And this community, as I said the other day, whether we like it or not, we're the center of a region. And we also need to be mindful of the needs of our neighbors in our surrounding counties, their needs, people with less resources than ours. This is no time to pull into a cocoon and think only of ourselves. When we think of others, we're going to be taking better care of ourselves in the process. And I can tell you from my own perspective, I too am a small business owner. And we have things, my business is probably not impacted as greatly as many other businesses in the community, but we have to be concerned about, I have employees and partners with young children and stuff, and things weigh heavily on their minds about what is in their future in this thing. And as a small business owner, we have to be mindful of taking care of our employees to the extent we can, and do everything we can to keep that business together and keep it moving. And that's what I would hope that other small businesses would do. This deal about all this panic purchasing and stuff, it makes it difficult when you have employees that work hard all day and they need to stop on the way home to grab a gallon of milk or something, and everybody's bought all of the stuff off of the shelves. It makes their lives even more difficult. So we've got to be mindful of our small businesses. And in your daily activities, remember the small businesses out there that are struggling. Find ways to purchase from them. If you can't go in to see them, call them up and find a way to say, I want a ream of paper. I'm going to come by and pick it up. Let me deliver it. Be creative. Find ways to support your small businesses and keep them in business. And in that tone too, when I talk about neighbors, the judge eloquently spoke about our at-risk populations, the elderly. We've got to remember them because they're the ones that are most vulnerable. And the thing that we've got to be wary of, those who are the healthy population need to be mindful that you might be a carrier. So you have to be ever vigilant when you deal with our elderly population. They need to know that people are out there to support them. If you can, volunteer in your organizations to deliver food, if it's possible, because that one visit a day with food might be the only visit they see in a day, and don't let them sit in isolation and think they're alone. So that is very, very important to all we do. And I can tell you as a father, most of my children are grown in a way, but my younger daughter, she's 25 years old, starting a career in Dallas, and I can tell you she's afraid. She worries about her job. She worries about what's going to happen if there are layoffs or if salaries are cut. So it's a real thing. This is real to everybody. It's real to all of us up here, all of us who are elected officials. And so I can advise you, talk to your children, talk to them and explain to them that this is simply a glitch in the road. Talk about the history of our country, all of the things that we've overcome as a country and a nation and as a community. Tell them that there is a tomorrow, and tell them that this too shall pass, and keep that line of communication going. And so with that, I will turn it over to Dr. McNeil. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. John McNeil, I just have a few things I want to go over, and mainly things from the CDC and the Centers for Disease Control and their recommendations and the things that actually changed during our press conference yesterday. So the biggest thing, of course, is the number of people that they want congregating together. We had originally talked about 50 people together at a maximum. They changed that to 10. And they've really dropped these standards, or up the bar, I guess I should say. And they've done this for a specific reason. And when you look at the data, and when you look at this, as I said, and as I'll probably say every day, that remember that stopping the spread of this virus is our way of treating it. So we don't have specific medications, although there's information out there that there may be medications available. They're working on that. There have been a couple of studies that are being followed very closely. So maybe there's something in the pipeline that can actually treat this disease, but we don't have it right now. We don't have a vaccine, although vaccine testing started yesterday, but they're saying 12 to 18 months before vaccines will be available. So that's not something that we can hang our hat on. But what we can hang our hat on is that we can contain this virus if we do the right thing. The Surgeon General, just a few minutes ago when I was on the way up here, I was listening to him talk, and he said something very interesting to me. He said that we are today where Italy was 2 weeks ago. And we know the large number of loss of life and the terrible conditions that happened in Italy because of this virus. He said that we are at that point where we were 2 weeks ago. And the response to that is the only thing that we have, and that is isolation. And that's what we're doing. So when we talk about no more than 10 people in a group, when we talk about curtailing certain activities, the Centers for Disease Control and the President's coronavirus, that's on coronavirus.gov, and we have handouts for it. But avoid social gatherings in groups of less than 10, no more than 10 people. It says to avoid eating and drinking at bars, restaurants, and food courts. We should limit these activities. We should use drive-throughs, pickup. Restaurants are now, I know I've spoken to a lot of people in the restaurant business, pick up food, being able to use drive-throughs. Basically, we're just trying to avoid people being together in the same room. And as I speak to all of y'all. So, but for the most part, just remember that now we're at that point, and we're going to use the one thing that we have to slow the spread of this virus. And I think we're going to do well. But this is the key point. We are basically at the bifurcation where we're going to go one direction or the other, and that is today, and that is right now. So please remember that. Please avoid large crowds. Elderly patients it's recommended that they stay at home, that they basically shelter at home. If you're older than 65 years old, those are things you need to worry about. So some of the things, one of the things that we're trying to do here is we're trying to talk to people about calls that have come in over the hotline. And as we've been told, there have been over 100 specific calls. People are asking if we're testing people, and has anyone actually been tested? Well, we know, because we're telling you the truth, there are no positive cases. I just had a conversation with a guy at HEB that told me that for sure there was one confirmed case in Victoria, and I assured him there is not. So, and I'll say that every day until there is one, and then we'll tell you about that one, okay? So, no confirmed cases, we've said that. And are we testing people? Absolutely, that's our job. Do we test everyone? No, that's our job too. What we do is we test it based on exposure, we test it on the important facts, we test it on their symptoms, if they have fever, if they have a cough, and if they have any exposure to anyone that's been exposed to this disease. So this disease is in our area, I'm sure, maybe not in Victoria, but we know that it was in Yoakum, and we know that it was in Matagorda. So it's in the region, and that's what we're a regional entity. So you know as well as I do, we have people coming from Victoria. Victoria is a hub, and we have people that go to Houston every day and come back. So we watch this very closely. How are people preparing for things at home? I would hope that everybody is preparing to be able to stay at home if they need to. I'm not going to sit here and tell you not to buy all the food off the shelves at HEB, because I think we all know that. HEB has assured us that they will restock every day. So are there certain medications that can help the symptoms of COVID-19? We don't have a specific medicine that treats COVID-19, but you know, this is a viral entity, and viruses can be treated with certain medications. We treat the symptoms. You need to stay hydrated. You need to make sure your diet is good. You can take Tylenol, and you can take Motrin right now. There's some studies saying that the anti-inflammatory effects of Motrin may not be as good as taking Tylenol, but those studies have not been proved. So I still recommend Tylenol and Motrin for fever and for symptomatic treatment. If you get worse, specifically a fever that won't go away, or if you get short of breath and can't breathe, that's when it becomes an emergency and you have to go to the emergency department. We're asking people to call your doctor if you think you're sick, and the doctor will send you to the correct place, okay? Now, the other thing is that I've been asked by the health department to mention that we do not have health providers at the health department itself. So if you come there and you're sick, then we will just route you to where you need to be. But just know, don't come there thinking that you're going to get emergency care. Other than calling 911, they don't have a whole lot to offer, okay? Now, other things have changed in our community. I know that some restaurants are limiting people coming inside. Some of the corporate restaurants that I know of have actually taken the chairs out of their dining rooms so that people cannot sit in there. They're still offering to-go food. The Citizens Healthplex, I had a conversation with the CEO of Citizens, and basically Mr. Olson told me that they're going to close the Healthplex for the next 15 days. As of 9:30 tonight, it will close. All the support services as far as rehab and those services will still be available, but the general gym, the generalized area in the gym will not be open. So these are just a lot of things that people are stepping up, and they're being very responsible, and they're closing things because we don't want a bunch of people in the same place, because that's how this disease spreads, okay? People needing help or direction from outside Victoria can call the health department or they can call the Department of Health Services Region 8. And that phone number is area code 210-949-2000. Remember that we are all in this together, and that we're at a pivotal point right now. So we need to limit our activities. You know, you're just gonna have to put up with a little bit of inconvenience for a little while. I mean, I went to H-E-B a while ago, and there's a lot of food gone. I've never seen H-E-B like that before. But that's just the time that we're in right now, and it will pass. So, any questions I can leave before I introduce someone else? Okay, great. I want to introduce Dr. Quentin Shepard. He's probably the one that y'all really came here to see today. So, he's the superintendent of the Victoria Independent School District, and he's going to have some information for us. Dr. Shepard.
Thank you.
As a humble shepherd that I am, it's my calling really in life to look after my flock. And my flock includes the 2,000 plus employees that we have in our district, the nearly 14,000 kids that attend our schools, and the community who looks to us to educate their children and look after their safety, their health and their well-being. We serve not just their academic needs, we serve their emotional needs. Oftentimes we serve their physical needs, we serve their nutritional needs. So we recognize that we offer tremendous service to families as they raise their kids, and we do our part to lift that share of the burden as well. So it's with a great deal of gravity that we approach this situation that we're all confronting, but at this time we're announcing that we're suspending face-to-face instruction starting on March 23rd. So that would be the Monday that we come back from spring break, and we anticipate resuming instruction via school packets or digital instruction, or a combination of both, starting on March 30th. So I'm going to talk through some of the details about that. Now, I know you're all reading and seeing that there are school closures around the country and around the state of Texas. I'm increasingly growing uncomfortable with that word, school closures, because it seems to indicate that things are going to come to a stop. And I don't want to send a message to students or parents that things are going to stop. And so I'm going to be using the phrase suspending face-to-face instruction. And we're going to take about a week to reorient how we deliver instruction for our students so that we can recommence with our kids starting on March 30th. So on the 23rd, we are asking all healthy staff members to come to work to help design curriculum, assessments, instructional protocols and procedures, as well as grade promotion guidelines. We're also working with our nursing staff, and we plan to temperature check all employees who show up for work on the 23rd to ensure that they're healthy. If staff are feeling unwell, we're asking them to please follow the guidelines from the CDC and the health department and not come to work. We're going to ask our nutrition staff to report early, and you're all going to get details from our nutrition services director about that. So look for those details to come via email or text message. But we're going to ask our nutrition services to show up to work early, and I'll explain why in just a minute. We're going to ask our administration and leadership teams to come in at 8 o'clock on the 23rd. Only leadership and administration are to show up at 8 o'clock. 2 hours later, at 10 o'clock, we're going to ask all of our teachers and support staff to come in. And again, this allows our nursing staff to set up so we can do the temperature screenings for our staff, and also orient our administration to have work for the staff to do when they show up. Any staff who are immunocompromised, it's important that you not show up to work if you feel unsafe. We're going to ask you to reach out to our payroll department and send documentation of immunocompromised state, and then we're going to teleconference you in, use Zoom meetings or teleconference, but we want to make sure that we're putting your safety at the top of our priority. I want to talk just briefly about testing, assessment, and promotion. You may have seen that the governor has suspended STAR testing and EOC testing. There's a domino effect that happens after that announcement. I'm going to be in Algebra 1 this year and who will not be taking an EOC, end of course examination. We, as a district, it now falls to us as a local school district to identify what the criteria are and the guidelines that indicates that that student is ready to be promoted into Algebra 2. Without the EOC in place, as a school district, we now have to create that framework. Specifically, I'm going to talk about seniors for just a minute. We are orienting ourselves over the course of the next week to deliver to the students and their parents what would be the protocol and requirements for graduation. Everything about what we do in education is changing. And so we're going to plan for that so that seniors know what they need to do in order to graduate. We're going to look at every grade level from juniors down to kindergartners and do the exact same thing. What we will not be doing is social promotion. We're not just going to take a second grader and say, congratulations, you're now a third grader, off you go. We need to ensure we have an obligation and a responsibility to ensure that all students are learning. And so we're going to create that curriculum and an assessment framework to ensure that students are making progress so that they can be appropriately challenged when they move on and that they're ready to be successful. So what that means for students and parents, there will be requirements and you will be obligated to fulfill those requirements in order to be promoted or potentially graduated. Support staff are going to continue to work as well. We've received lots of comments and questions from our support staff, our custodial staff, our transportation staff, our nutrition staff, our paraprofessionals. We want you all to continue working as well. We understand, we recognize that you depend on this income for your livelihood, and so we're going to ask you to continue working as well. So everybody will be expected to show up on the 23rd, unless of course you met those criteria that I defined just a few minutes ago. We want to ensure that our facilities are ready for when the students do come back. So plenty of stuff for us to do. Really important for me, and this is the most important thing I think I'm going to say at the press conference today, is around student nutrition. We know that countless kids and families depend on the school lunch program and the food that we're able to provide our kids, and this is one that was of primary importance to me. So, breakfast and lunch, that's breakfast and lunch, effective Monday, March 23rd, the VISD Child Nutrition Department can provide free breakfast and lunch to every single one of our students. Every single student. Any student under the age of 19. So 18 all the way down to 1. Any student of any age from 18 down to 1 year old, we will provide free breakfast and lunch to every student. And when I say every student, I mean every student. I'm not just talking to the students of VISD. I'm talking to every student, whether they're in parochial school, whether they're in home school, or whether they're in any of the surrounding school districts as well. Now, I recognize that the surrounding school districts have not suspended instruction yet, but should we get to a point where they suspend instruction, I feel that it's our duty as one of the larger school districts in the area to ensure that every kid in our region has the opportunity to be fed. And so that's why we're doing free breakfast and free lunch for every student, regardless of where they come from. So the proposal as it currently stands is that we're going to divide parents into alpha groups. So A through L as an example, and then M through Z, and we're going to assign you a time frame to show up to our schools to pick up lunches. We're going to put all that information out on our website, through social media. We're going to lean heavily on Channel 25 and The Advocate to help us communicate that information as well. You're going to get those details in the coming days. Both meals will be offered. Again, it's in an effort to keep things safe and to keep groups of people from congregating. Both meals will be offered curbside in front of the doors by the front of the campus so that parents don't have to come inside. We're trying to limit everyone's exposure, so imagine a series of cars queuing up in front of the building. Those meals will be brought out to the car as long as the parent and student are in the car. That's a federal regulation right now. We're trying to see if we can get that waived, but the student has to be present. Then we're going to be able to give the meals directly into the car, and the parents are on their way. We're planning to serve these meals at 6 campuses now, and we're looking to expand to all campuses if there's a need in the community. The 6 campuses that we're planning for right now are Allo Elementary, Crane Elementary, Hopkins Elementary, Roland Elementary, Shields Elementary, and Stroman Middle School. Again, that's Allo, Crane, Hopkins, Roland, Shields, and Stroman. A message to the parents. We need you to stay strong with us, the school district. One of my fears for our community is that students will not be coming to school, coming back from spring break. And as both the judge and mayor talked about their families, I'll talk about my family. In my household, I have 2 teenage daughters. I know that they're going to want to go out and socialize. It's my duty, it is my obligation to tell them no. Although school will not be in session for face-to-face instruction, it is incumbent on every parent, for the safety of our community, to keep our kids home. It's important that we stand together on this, and we lock arms as a school district and as a community, and agree that we are going to do everything in our power to keep our community safe. And so I'm asking the parents to please stand with us, the school district, and please stand together as a community and ensure that we're following these guidelines so that we can keep our kids safe, but equally important, we can keep our community safe. And also, parents, I'm asking you to support our efforts in this curricular shift. We know that over the course of the next 4 days, starting next week, we're going to attempt to transform everything that we've come to know about education in the last 200 years. And we've got about 4 days to do it, to figure out how to deliver this type of instruction to students in this new world that we're living in. So we're asking you to bear with us. There will be a learning curve to this. We're going to do our very best, but there will be changes that'll need to be made as we enact this. To the students, a couple of points to you as well for those students who are watching. Number one, adhere to the guidelines. I've long said that in middle school is where students learn to find their voice. In high school is where students learn to use it. And so especially for the high school students out there, I'm asking you to use your voice as a voice for good, as a voice for unity around doing what it is that we know that we have to do. I'm gonna ask you to do that. I also want to take issue with another phrase that I think we're using a lot, and I understand the need to use the phrase, but I'm growing a little bit uncomfortable with it when I think about my kids, and that is social distancing. So for the students who are listening to this, don't think of it so much as social distancing, think of it as physical distancing. All of you, frankly, have grown up in a world where your social lives largely revolve around your electronic devices. I'm actually encouraging you to expand your social reach on social media. I'm encouraging you to reach out to your friends and maintain that network now more than ever, especially to your friends who you might be worried about. And you all know that we have students in our system who we deeply care about. And I'm asking you to reach out to your network of friends and make sure that you're touching base with them and staying socially connected to your peers and to your family and to your community. Don't think of this so much as social distancing, think of it as physical distancing, because your social networks are really important for you right now, and they're important for our community. And then last, I wanted to say something to the students, and I'm going to read this because I wanted to make sure that I said it right. But this is to the students directly, and you're going to get an email of this later today. I am sorry. As I have watched the events over this past week unfold and levels of concern and fear grow at an increasing rate, I have tried to think of what we could say to you. I write this on behalf of our trustees, your administrators, and your teachers. We know many of you look to us, your teachers, counselors, and administrators, for guidance. We know you also look to your parents, your families, and your community in times of crisis. The truth is, we are trying hard to find concrete answers, and we are learning as we go. I am sure you have heard and seen the experts who are saying close schools and we need to shut down, and other experts are saying not to close until we have more concrete information. You have heard everyone say we are making decisions with your safety as our highest priority, and that remains true. What you have not heard is an apology. An apology is the recognition that you are sacrificing so much, that you have worked so hard for. You work hard in practices, games, programs, performances, events, and of course, school. You do not want these things to be put on hold. I know that. There are things you will never get to do again, and I know this. We feel your sorrow deeply in our hearts, and we share in your disappointment. There is no greater joy for a superintendent, a teacher, an administrator, or a district trustee than to see our students excel at what they love to do. So I'm asking you to sit tight and be strong. Your teachers and parents have worked hard to teach you about leadership, how to deal with adversity, how to persevere, and how to be resilient. Right now, we are asking you to put all of what you've learned into practice. In life, we grow the most when we struggle. We do not grow when times are easy. Struggle gives us a chance to reach new levels. Are things going to remain the same moving forward? No. Will we have the same goals? No. Do we know the path forward? No. Is this going to be easy for anyone? No. Will we be better, stronger, smarter, and more resilient in the end? Yes. Know this, we are, and we always will be, VISD proud of you. Hang in there. We've got this. I would like to introduce Darren Casimir now. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Darren Casimir. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at Victoria College. Victoria College has plans in place that are very similar to Victoria ISD's. In response to the latest recommendations from the CDC and the White House, Victoria College is extending spring break for a full week for our students. No classes will be held through Sunday, March 29th. Our students will resume all classes online or through alternative formats on Monday, March 30th. Students will not be attending classes on campus until further notice. At this time, our employees will return to campus on Monday, March 23rd, and our offices will remain open, so students will still be able to make appointments with college personnel. We're also canceling all Victoria College events through the end of April. So that means Victoria College's Museum of the Coastal Bend, Leo J. Welder Center for the Performing Arts, and Emerging Technology Complex are also closed to the public until further notice. We are beginning to notify the VC community of these changes. We'll be doing that through our alert system, on our website, with the media. But we also ask that our students and employees continue to monitor Victoria College's website, text alerts, and emails for up-to-date information as it's available. At this time, I believe we're going to open up for questions.
I have some questions. With VC transitioning to online, how will that transition work, and how long will students need to be online, and is there a plan in place to transition back to in-person at this point?
So the plans have been in the works for that. We have our contingency plans, but our leadership team will actually be meeting tomorrow to see what those logistics will actually look like, and I'll have more information after that meeting.
Will tutoring services still be available to students?
We plan to still offer our services, our student services, support services to students. Just the logistics of what all that looks like, we're still working through.
And what about students without access to technology or internet?
After our meeting tomorrow with leadership team, I'll have a better information for you on those logistics. Thank you.
How does that apply to VISC as well for students that may not have access to technology and internet?
It's a great question. So we're planning as well. A couple things I can tell you. We do have several devices for students, which would include everything from laptops to iPads. Different students might need different types of devices. So what we're queuing up for next week is to be able to reach out to parents and ask parents what it is that they need for their students to be able to access online and curriculum. I'm not going to give the website out now, and there's a really important reason, but for those parents, and we recognize that some families and parents may also need access to internet if they don't have access to internet so that students can complete this work. My understanding is that Altus is making available free internet for families that qualify for 60 days. Now, for those families who are listening, please do not go Google search and download that 60-day trial that starts now, because we're not offering online instruction for at least the next 2 weeks. So you're using up some of that time that you don't need to yet. We will send out that information to families as we have it and when it's appropriate for you to download and have that. We're also looking into hotspots, mobile hotspots, if we should need those, if this becomes an extended period of time, so that we can have hotspots available for students as well. Equity of opportunity means that all students need to have access to equipment so that they can do their work, and we're taking that very seriously.
Are there any plans to continue special education at this point?
So, great question. There's a really, really long answer, and I need a couple hours to answer it. I'll give you the short version of the answer. TEA, the Texas Education Agency, asked for guidance from the Federal Department of Education. Special education is a federally program, and so we're looking for guidance from them. As it stands now from the Federal Department of Education, special education standards are in place as they've always been, so that there's no essential waiver or flexibility when it comes to the needs for our special education students. We will be communicating with special education families directly as well in the next few days.
Are there opportunities for citizens in the community to help to volunteer for feeding the children?
It's a great question, and we've had a couple of groups already reach out and offer that. I think we're good to start with, and that's where we're going to put it. It's a great question, and what I've responded to everyone is we're set to start. However, we may need the help of volunteers moving forward. If the coronavirus does enter our community and staff members start becoming sick, unwell, and can't work, we may need to call in a network of volunteers to help with either food preparation, food distribution, or managing some of the traffic flow towards that. So for any group of people that would like to volunteer your services, please don't hesitate to reach out to the district, and certainly it'll be nice to know that we've got reinforcements if we need to call them in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. In closing, I want to remind everybody of the hotline 580-5796. That continues to be operated during business hours, Monday through Friday. We may expand that time frame as needed. VictoriaTXOEM.org. We will continue to monitor social media and solicit questions from the public that we will again try every day to answer for you. We'll be back here again tomorrow. I want to reiterate to folks that we are facing these challenges as a community. There's no need for panic. What there is a need for is teamwork, responding to this as a community, and following the advice that's given. In the coming days, in future press briefings, what we would like to do, since it seems we'll be seeing a lot of each other in the time frame ahead, what we plan to do is bring in additional subject matter experts who you haven't heard from yet. For example, some examples, I don't know if these will materialize, but for example, folks in the distribution chain with perhaps local grocery stores, people maybe who are in, are related to our gas stations, fuel availability, both fuel and groceries. The food chain, the distribution supply chain there is not impacted. Like was mentioned by the mayor, that's panic purchasing, which we discourage. But we may hear from additional state and federal leaders, so we'll give an invitation to them to share with our community about what's going on, and anybody else who we think would add value to the public. We certainly want to share and be open with the great information we're getting behind the scenes. We want to be upfront and giving that same information to the community. So that's our plans going forward. we'll probably look to roll that out within the next, hopefully, few days. But in any case, we'll be back here again tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and we will see you guys then. Thank you.